Hello everyone and welcome to the biology lecture series, and today we'll be discussing the topic excretion. Alright, so we have already discussed some of the topics in the previous lecture. So in the previous lecture I've given you a brief introduction about what is excretion, how can we define it, and then we talked about the excretion in amoeba. And in excretion in amoeba we were talking about the contractile vacuole and what is the excretion mechanism is called in amoeba. So amoeba are monotelic. Okay, so they secrete ammonia. That's why they are known as monotelic. Apart from this, we also studied about the excretion in the earthworm. So there we studied about the structure of the nephridium and what is the function of the nephridium. So today in this lecture, we'll be studying about the excretory system in higher organism. So human is a higher organism. So today we'll be studying about the human excretory system. Now, first let me give you a brief introduction about the human excretory system and what kinds of excretory products are produced in the human body. Now, in the previous lecture, we have studied about the metabolic processes. So metabolic processes, they are carried out with the help of the enzymes. Okay. And we can also call metabolic processes as metabolism. Okay. We have discussed about the metabolism in the previous lecture. Metabolism, it consists of both catabolic and anabolic process. Okay. So it consists of both anabolic as well as the catabolic process. Anabolism means, or anabolic process means, where the complex compound are formed from the simple compounds. Okay, from the simple compounds, complex compounds are formed. And during the catabolic process, what happens? There is a breakdown of the complex compound into the simpler compounds. Okay, so both anabolism and catabolism, they combine to form the metabolism. Now, they have to be eliminated as they are toxic to the body. Means this nitrogenous waste or the waste materials. So we have already discussed in the previous lecture, this waste can be nitrogenous waste or it can be other waste. So what are the nitrogenous waste if we talk about? So some are nitrogenous waste. Okay, and these wastes are produced as a byproduct of this chemical reaction, or you can say as the byproduct of this metabolic processes. So one of the type is the nitrogenous waste. What are the nitrogenous waste? The first one is the ammonia. NH3 is ammonia. Then we have the urea. Okay, and the third one is the uric acid. Okay, some other waste products are carbon dioxide. Okay, and excess water, it has to be also eliminated out of the body. All right, so these waste products have to be eliminated out of the body, because if they accumulate in the body, they can be toxic to the body and it can also lead to a lot of diseases. That's why it has to be excreted or eliminated out of the body, and this process is known as excretion. Now, the waste product includes, I've already told you some of them. Carbon dioxide. First one is the carbon dioxide. So when is carbon dioxide released? Carbon dioxide is formed during the process known as respiration. So in respiration, what happens? The glucose molecule or the respiratory substrate. So respiratory substrate can be glucose, or it can be fats, or it can be proteins. Okay. So glucose, generally glucose is used as the respiratory substrate because it is very easily and readily available. So first we have the glucose. If glucose is not available, the proteins can be used as the respiratory substrate, and then fats can also be used So these three are the respiratory substrate. Okay. So what happens during respiration? There is the oxidation of all these three. Okay. Oxidation takes place during the respiration. So oxidation means in the presence of oxygen, these respiratory substrate, they are broken down to release energy. And in this process, carbon dioxide is also liberated. And carbon dioxide has to be eliminated out of the body. Otherwise, it will be toxic. If it dissolves in the blood, it can be toxic to the humans. Okay, so it should be eliminated out of the body. And this elimination is done with the help of the organs known as lungs. Okay, now let's talk about the nitrogenous metabolic waste. So these nitrogen metabolic waste, examples are urea, uric acid, as well as ammonia. These are produced in the liver. And from what they are produced? They are produced from the excessive proteins that we eat. So proteins, when they are broken down to release the energy, they also release the urea and the uric acid. And these are toxic to the living organism, and it has to be eliminated out of the body. Now, some of the other waste products are bile pigments. So bile pigments, these are present where? This is present in the bile. And bile is produced by which organ? Bile is produced by liver. So liver is the largest organ in the human body, and liver produces this bile which contains these bile pigments. Apart from this bile pigment, some salts are also present. Okay. One of the pigment is bilirubin. Another pigment is biliverdin. Okay. So these are colored compounds. So bile pigments, they are colored compounds. Okay. So bilirubin is orangish yellow in color, whereas biliverdin is green in color. And how they are formed? These bile pigments, they are derived by breaking down of the hemoglobin. So hemoglobin, it gives red color to the blood, and due to the breakdown of this hemoglobin, which are present in the erythrocytes. So erythrocytes are also known as RBCs, red blood cells. So hemoglobin present in the erythrocyte, it is broken down and it releases or it forms bile pigments, which are bilirubin and biliverdin. Okay, so these pigments, they also give color to the urine and the feces. Now, let's talk about the other waste product. So some excess salts, water and vitamins. So these also has to be eliminated out of the body. The body doesn't need this excess water and salts and vitamins, and they has to be eliminated out of the body. Now the concentration of these substances above the required level is harmful. Okay, so in day-to-day life, we eat a lot of salts, we take a lot of water, and we take a lot of vitamins. But if the amount is above the optimum level, then it can be toxic to the living organism. So the concentration of these substances above the required level may be harmful. So these excess salts, water and vitamins has to be eliminated out of the body. Now, here you can see that the elimination of this all metabolic nitrogenous waste from the body is known as excretion. Okay, this we have already discussed in the previous lecture. What is excretion? Elimination of this waste product that are produced during the metabolic reactions or the processes. Now let's talk about the organs of excretion. What are the organs that are involved in excretion? Okay, so one of the organ is lungs. So lungs helps in the elimination of carbon dioxide, which is produced during the process of respiration. So what happens? Suppose glucose molecule is oxidized during the respiration. So you can say glucose. What is the formula for glucose? It is C6H12O6. When it combines with oxygen, So these are the substrates or the reactant. So glucose combines with the oxygen, or in the presence of oxygen, it breaks down into smaller molecules, and here carbon dioxide is released, as well as energy is also released. So with the process of respiration, energy is released that is utilized in the various metabolic processes which are very important for the survival of the living organism. Along with it, carbon dioxide is also produced. Okay, and some water is also produced. So this carbon dioxide has to be eliminated out of the body. So respiration is you can see, is a very important process. It generates energy. So this type of respiration is known as aerobic respiration, because it is taking place in the presence of what? Oxygen. Okay. Now this carbon dioxide has to be eliminated. So what happens? The carbon dioxide produced by the oxidation of the glucose or some other food, means some other respiratory substances, which can be fats or it can be proteins. Okay, so if carbohydrates are not available, so glucose is a kind of a carbohydrate, it is a monosaccharide. If glucose is not available, then proteins or fat can be oxidized to release energy. So the oxidation of the glucose and other food substances in the tissues is removed by the blood. So first, the carbon dioxide mixes in the blood. Then what happens? The carbon dioxide along with the blood is carried to the lungs. Through what? Through the blood vessels, which we call at veins. So veins, they carry the impure blood. Okay, deoxygenated blood. And arteries, they carry the oxygenated blood. Alright. So this carbon dioxide is carried to the lungs through the veins, where it diffuses into the alveoli. So you know lungs consist of the alveoli, and this carbon dioxide, with the help of the process known as diffusion, it enters into the alveoli and it is thrown out through the respiratory tract. Now what happens? The water vapor in small amount is also exhaled during the expiration from the lungs. So what is expiration? Expiration is the process of when we breathe out. This is known as expiration. So along with the carbon dioxide, water vapor are also exhaled out during the process of the respiration, or you can say during the expiration from the lungs. All right. Now next organ is skin. So skin is also an organ of excretion. Now what happens? Substances like the soluble food matter, okay, oxygen and water dissolved mineral salts, okay, as well as the traces of the urea and the uric acid, they diffuse from the thin walls of the capillaries into the walls of the sweat glands. Okay, so these, sweat glands, they are present in the skin, and all these substances, soluble food matter, oxygen, traces of urea and uric acid, as well as some water soluble mineral salt, they diffuse. Here again, the process is diffusion. They diffuse from the thin walls of the capillaries into the walls of the sweat gland. And when they reach into the sweat gland, then they can be eliminated out through sweat. So sweat contains all these salts and all, and uric acid and urea. Now the oxygen and the food substances, they are used for the metabolic activities of the cells of the sweat gland. What does this mean? This means that the cells of the sweat gland, okay, they use the oxygen and the food substances, okay, they are used in the metabolic processes. All right, and what happens if there is some metabolic process going on? Then what will happen? Waste product will be produced. So the metabolic waste that is produced, they are excreted out of the sweat gland through the sweat duct. And this sweat duct opens on the surface of the skin through the sweat pore. Alright, So what is saying? What does this mean? This means that there are some metabolic activities that require oxygen, okay, and the food substances, okay, and because of these metabolic activities, metabolic waste is produced, and this waste, okay, is excreted out from the sweat gland through sweat duct, which open on the skin. Now, if we talk about the sweat, now the sweat contains all the waste material now. Okay, now sweat contains 99% of the water, and it also contains traces of urea and uric acid. So these urea and uric acid have been produced by a lot of the metabolic activities, all right, and they are excreted. So some of the urea and uric acid in trace amount are also excreted through sweat. Now, however, after heavy exercise, when you do a lot of physical activity, then lactic acid is produced. So lactic acid is produced in the absence of oxygen, you can say, or in limited oxygen. So when you do very heavy exercise, oxygen is not available in the muscle cells. So lactic acid is generally produced in the muscle cells when you do vigorous exercise. Okay, so when you do heavy exercise, there is lack of oxygen. And what happens? Then lactic acid is produced. So this is known as lactic acid fermentation, or this is known as the anaerobic fermentation, respiration. Okay, lactic acid is produced in the absence of the oxygen. All right. So when you do heavy exercise, then lactic acid forms a major constituent of the sweat. So lactic acid is also released through sweat. Now, the profuse sweating may lead to sodium deficiency. So if you sweat a lot, you can lose a lot of salts. So you can lose sodium, and the body can be deficient in the sodium. Okay. And if the body is deficient in the sodium, or if the muscles are deficient in sodium, then it can lead to muscle cramps. Okay. So you must have seen in a lot of players and all. So what they do, they undergo a lot of sweating. There is profuse sweating, and they lose a lot of salts. So one of the salt is the sodium. So because of the shortage of these salts, there are muscle cramps. Now what happens? An adaptation or prevention of water loss is the impermeability of our skin to the water. So the human skin, it is impermeable to the water. Okay, if you talk about some other organisms such as aquatic organisms, there the skin is the major excretory organ. Okay, if you talk about the aquatic animals, skin is the major excretory organ. But humans, skin is not the major excretory organ. It is the some other organs such as kidney and all. Okay, so it is a adaptation to prevent the loss of water, because our skin is impermeable to water. Okay, that's why we can conserve water. Okay, and only loss of water is through the sweat. Okay, however, aquatic animals, skin is the major excretory organ. Now, if you talk about the aquatic animals, they excrete ammonia. That's why they are ammonotelic. Okay, so if an organism is excreting ammonia, it is known as ammonotelic. So these aquatic animals, they are usually ammonotelic. They excrete ammonia through their skin by the process known as diffusion. Okay, because ammonia is very highly soluble in water. So in diffusion, what happens? There is a formation of a concentration gradient. Okay, for diffusion to occur, you need a concentration gradient. What happens? Inside, the level of ammonia is very high. Outside, the level of ammonia is less. So by the process of diffusion, ammonia is eliminated out of the body through skin in the aquatic animals. Okay, this is clear. Now let's talk about the structure of the kidney. But before understanding the structure of the kidney, let's study about the nephron. Okay, first let's discuss what is nephron. So nephrons stand as the fundamental building block of the kidney. So kidney, what is the structural and functional unit of the kidney? You can say they are nephrons. So nephrons are the building blocks of the kidney, both in structure and the function. It comprises a renal corpuscles and a renal tubule, okay, forming a microscopic unit. We will study about this when we will study about the internal structure of the kidney, about the renal corpuscles and renal tubule. All right. So these renal corpuscles and renal tubules, they are also a part of the nephron. Now, its name originates from the Greek word, which is known as the nephros, which translates to kidney. So, what is the from where the nephron word is derived? It is derived from the Greek word nephron, which means kidney. Now, within each human kidney, there are millions of nephrons. Okay, so nephrons, they are the structural and functional unit of the kidney. They are present in the kidney, and millions of nephrons are present in the kidney. Okay, we will discuss about the structure of the nephron now. Okay, so what is the structure of the nephron? The first is the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so what is Bowman's capsule? It is a single-celled, thick, double-walled, cup-shaped structure. So Bowman's capsule is I will draw a rough sketch of it. This is a Bowman's capsule. So it is a cup-shaped structure. Okay, and within this, these blood capillaries are present, like this here. Okay, which is known as the glomerulus. Okay, so this is the Bowman's capsule. It looks like this. I'll show you the structure of the nephron in the upcoming slide. Okay, so this is Bowman's capsule, which is a cup-shaped structure. Okay, inside you have the blood capillaries, or there is a network of blood capillaries. Okay, there is a network of these blood capillaries, which is known as what? Glomerulus. Okay, so the C-shaped capsule contains a network of capillaries known as glomerulus. So this is clear. Then we have a structure here known as proximal convoluted tubule. We'll discuss about this also. Okay, so Bowman's capsule, it is a cup-shaped structure present in the cortex region of the kidney. Okay, so what is the cortex region of the kidney? So kidney looks like this. It is a bean-shaped structure. Okay, here is a depression here known as hilum. Okay, this is known as the hilum. And the kidney, it consists of two regions. First is the cortex and second is the medulla. Okay, and within the kidney, these pyramids are present. Okay, these pyramids, these are known as the renal pyramid. Okay, so this region is known as the cortex. Okay, and this region where the renal pyramids are present, this is known as the medulla. So you have to remember this. Some nephrons are present in the medulla, or you can say some part of the nephron is present in the medulla and some part is present in the cortex. Okay, so these are known as these structure. These are known as the renal pyramid. Okay, this is known as the renal pyramid. Okay, the upper region is known as the cortex and the renal pyramid, they are present in the medullary region. Now, the cup-shaped capsule contains a network of capillaries known as the glomerulus, and the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, they are together known as the renal corpuscles. Okay. Now, let's talk about the proximal convoluted tubule. So, the Bowman's capsule extends into the proximal convoluted tubule. So it starts after the Bowman's capsule and it is greatly twisted. So that's why it is known as convoluted, because it is greatly twisted. And the whole proximal convoluted tubule, it lies in the cortex region of the kidney. Now, the proximal convoluted tubule, it merges into, or you can say it extends into Henle's loop. Okay. So this is given on the name of the discoverer, Henle. So this Henle loop is a U-shaped tubule located in the medulla region. All right. And what does this Henle's loop consist of? This consists of a thin descending limb, which is present in the medulla, and a thin ascending limb that is present in the cortex. So if you talk about the Henle's loop, it consists of a descending limb and also consists of an ascending limb. Okay. Now the Henle's loop is long in those animals which pass the hypertonic urine. So hypertonic urine means concentrated urine. Okay. So here there is absorption of water also. That's why the urine become concentrated. Now the proximal convoluted tubule is attached to the distal convoluted tubule. Okay. Or you can say proximal convoluted tubule leads to the distal convoluted tubule. Now the ascending limb. Okay. This ascending limb continues into the distal convoluted tubule, which forms several coils in the cortex. So this is known as distal convoluted tubule. And then later on, the last part is known as the collecting tube. Now the collecting tube receives the distal tubules of several uriniferous tubules. Okay. So collecting tubules, what does it receive? It receives all the distal tubules from several uriniferous tubules. Now several such tubules unite to form a large collecting duct. Okay. So the collecting ducts are held together and they converge to form a pyramid. The pyramid opens into the pelvis, which leads into the ureter. Okay, I've already told you about the renal pyramid. So all these renal pyramid, they open into the pelvis, which leads into the ureter. So I've already told you this was the structure of the kidney. Okay, here these renal pyramids were present. Okay, these were the renal pyramids. And all these renal pyramid, they merge together in the region known as pelvis, and then this is known as the ureter. Okay. So this is the ureter here, which carries the urine. Alright, these are known as the renal pyramid, which are present in the medullary region. Okay. So this is a very rough sketch of a structure of the kidney. Okay. Now here you can see this is the structure of the nephron. Okay. This is the structure of the nephron. Here you can see glomerulus, which is the network of the capillaries. This is present in the Bowman's capsule. Okay. This is present in the Bowman's capsule, which is the cup-shaped structure. Glomerulus is the network of capillaries. Okay. And this Bowman's capsule, then it extends into the proximal convoluted tubule, which is very convoluted. It is very much twisted. That's why the name convoluted. Then this proximal convoluted tubule, it leads to the Henle's loop. So this is the Henle's loop. One is the ascending loop, and another one is the descending loop of Henle. Okay. Then here you can see the distal convoluted tubule. So this Henle's, so this one is the Henle's loop. Okay. And we have already, I've already told you the ascending loop of Henle is merges into the what? Distal convoluted tubule. All right. Here you can see this is the collecting duct here in the end. And these are some other regions, macula densa, okay, indicated by the dark spot. This is the thick ascending limb of loop of the Henle. So I've already told you this ascending loop of Henle, this extend into this distal convoluted tubule. And here you can see finally this is the collecting duct. So all the univalous tubule, they merge into the collecting duct. So what are the parts of the nephron? First one is the Bowman's capsule. All right. Then Bowman's capsule, it leads into proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal convoluted tubule, okay, it leads to Henle's loop. Henle's loop is divided into descending loop of Henle and which is thin and thick ascending loop of Henle. So this one is the descending loop. Okay. This is the descending loop of Henle. All right. Now, Henle's loop is further connected to the distal convoluted tubule, and distal convoluted tubule is further, or you can say further merges in the collecting duct. So this is the structure of the nephron. All right. So this was the end of the session. We will discuss about the rest of the topics in the next lecture. Thank you very much for listening.